Divine daughters, you've come so far on your journey of healing. We dive now further into your illusion mind, the lower mind that creates fantasies about reality that are not based on divine truth. These illusions are clever in their disguise of absolute principles. They create a crack in the fabric of unity, and the false part bleeds the life energy away. Creation cannot hold a coherent weave when these cracks drain off the flow of your energy. You cannot meet the sacred masculine because this illusion creates a canyon between you where you cannot possibly come together in harmony. You cannot even see each other correctly, and you have no tool to learn how to cross the gap between you. Now we explore the fallacy of romantic fantasy that has led the innocent maiden to extreme levels of disappointment and escapism. This dreaming is apart from what is real in your world and causes a discord of non-connection. The feminine and masculine do not speak the same language, and so their words to one another are not understood. Their energies run in opposition, as separation, rather than in complementary togetherness. The union of the divine feminine and masculine in euphoric bliss is not an illusion. You have a divine memory of this in your soul, and it is the basis for your desire to recreate and experience this sort of exquisite sacred love. As with all illusions, they begin with the seed of truth. The feminine has this memory of truth, but she becomes obsessed with finding it again in the material world, so devoid of love. The great split between the forces of creation has caused the masculine to forget the seed of union. And so one remembers and one forgets. How can the two find one another in this confusion? The masculine energy fell hard to be grounded firmly in a world of survival, responsibility, challenge, and competition. He is rooted fiercely into his mental self that is counted upon to strive, command, provide, and be practical. In forgetting the ideals of high union with the feminine, the wounded masculine descended from the high lover to the lustful consumer of energy. He could not control his desire. He lost touch with emotion. It became a territory he was not allowed to enter. Emotion is foreign and frightening to him, as he is trained and conditioned to never feel or risk being ridiculed as not a man. As with all desires that are unquenchable, his lust, now disconnected from love, becomes the ordeal of his life. It often destroys the masculine psyche. But the feminine remembers the high ideals of the divine union and sacred lovers that are one. She is horrified that he has forgotten and abandoned her. She cannot fathom that he would love and then leave her for another, or would ignore, disrespect, and demean her. The feminine wound opens because she holds this memory in her soul, but each time in innocence she opens to receive her divine counterpart, she is met with something much different. The many foul iterations of this loss and lowness are a shock to her, and so she develops myriad wounding patterns to cope with the grief of love's apparent non-existence on the earth plane. Often the soul will begin to craft a fantasy of escape from the burdens of the mundane, harsh reality. And so the feminine falls into dreaming a fantasy of an idealized masculine, a knight in shining armor, the rescuer that is the perfect blend of strong and gentle, that sweeps her off her feet to save her from the monstrous drudgery of a world without love. She daydreams and hopes, and over many lifetimes is wounded by predators that defile her innocence with false promises of this sweeping romantic experience. She longs for it deep in her soul. The courtship ritual is based on feeding this fantasy to the feminine, and once she is won over and submits, the truth of the low masculine is sadly revealed. Films, books, and fairy tales are filled with the story that the wounded feminine loves to escape into, and the wounded masculine is repulsed by and laughs at. The dark wolves use this well-known fairy tale to pull the wounded maiden into the lair of consumptive deception. When the feminine instinct is injured and ungrounded, she is attracted like a moth to the flame, to the predator. The one who puts on the suit of armor to pretend he is the charming, valiant knight, but he is the villain instead, come to ruin her and steal her riches. And so the story ends as it always does for instinctually wounded maidens when vampires masquerade as kings. The maiden must rise from the princess that is a child with innocence that is naive into the queen of empowered love. She must take the journey within her own being to unmask the inner villain of the weak, betraying masculine who does not commit to her, does not keep his word, does not protect or honor her. And so when a man of flesh and bone arrives, and in the beginning plays the romantic lover to get her to blossom open, she is quickly devastated when he becomes the gruff and crude self he always was under the mask. She does not understand who this masculine imposter is, and she is crushed. She may then set a projection upon him instead of meeting him as he is. She is obsessed with the man he could become. His unpolished, crude parts are overlooked, and he is idealized. She sees his potential, and she fixates on changing, healing, loving him back to wholeness. Eventually, when confronted with the inevitable failure of this doomed strategy of reform, she becomes rigid and angry, pushing his inadequacy into his face with disdain and lamenting the victim she has become. This masculine is now subjected to the wrath of revenge from the disappointed, scornful feminine. He is now crucified before all for his woeful inadequacy and failure. The ancestral feminine has lived this story over and over. It is rutted like an ancient road into her psychological expectation and biological neural pathways. Again and again, she is let down, abandoned, abused, and disappointed by the lower experience she has with the wounded masculine. To escape this fate, she floats in an astral dream of the perfect union. If her masculine cannot become this man, she dreams of other stories of romance. Envision the housewife watching the frenzied dramas of soap opera because she is stuck in the drudgery of the mundane tasks of life and cannot change her reality. Escapism gives her a place to find solace. She will never truly be present for the masculine before her. She is locked away in a dreamscape. Outwardly, she's going through the motions of life, doing her duties of obligation, but she seals her grief-stricken heart into isolation. Like the helpless maiden in the high tower awaiting rescue, she sits quietly waiting for the one true love. When the feminine is lost in romantic illusion, she cannot meet the masculine. She bypasses him. He does not even exist anymore. And there is danger in the wounded instincts of the moonstruck, dreamy maiden seeking this fairy tale romance. She cannot see or detect the predators that know how to feed the romantic storyline to her in a seductive ploy. She steps willingly into the mouth of the predator and is consumed. Left with her shattered fantasies, she is grief-stricken. She is betrayed, used, mistreated, and disrespected yet again. She is not the princess of the fairy tale and falls back into the harsh reality of the mundane, loveless world. Ancestrally, if the maiden has given her feminine jewels in a way that is not condoned by the narrative of virginal properness, and she opened her gates to the deceit of the hidden monster, she would also be defamed and disgraced as a fallen whore. Now her life is ruined, as no man of honor would choose her. She is doomed. How many dreamy young women were de-virgined or impregnated and then abandoned in this sad, well-known storyline? This ancient wounded feminine psyche has not developed her core sovereign identity of true empowered grace. And so the fantasy of the fairy tale with the prince is yet another way to meld her identity into that of another, so she can be subsumed and validated as real through his identity rather than her own. She escapes the work of self-actualization, placing all of her devotional attention on the masculine, who will be a person for her. What he is becomes a reflection of all she is. And so she fixates on who he could be, trying with every cunning tactic and strategy to improve him. She becomes centered in the need to control him and others like her children that reflect back on her. This inevitably does not work, and she's terribly disappointed. He has not met his potential. He has not changed. He will never change. The feminine is let down so many times, she eventually toughens and pulls back from the belief in this childish fantasy. She becomes the frigid, harsh woman that is always agitated and angry. Her energy becomes hostile. She becomes hardened and vengeful. Her gentle, flowing feminine being disappears. It dries up, and she appears perpetually aggravated. She is the bitter woman scorned, and her revenge is to withdraw and withhold her feminine warmth and grace and make everyone around her as miserable and forlorn and empty as she has become. It is a passive revenge, but very potent. She acts as if they do not exist. The masculine and others around her become invisible. Even though she is present in the physical space of her duty, she becomes like a ghost in the room. Those around her deeply sense the penance they are paying with her eerie silence and complete emotional absence. No one speaks of it. Like a crime committed and washed away in the river of denial, it remains lingering in the air as the putrid scent of guilt. She becomes a copy of the masculine weakness she inherited from her father or paternal lineage. She is emotionally numb. There is no one home in her heart space. Whatever the abuses from the paternal lineage, she begins to strangely embody them. She is an ice queen, devoid of feminine compassion. She casts the harsh judgment, the exacting and vengeful sentence of exile from the feminine, nurturing life force. It is time to rise, dear feminine, to reclaim your divine inheritance of the queendom of radiant light and compassion, to become again the empress of your own being, the one who is both loving but also shrewd, to call out the illusions of the longing princess maiden that is easily misled and defiled as she is attracted into her own ruin from following a child's dreams. Once the divine queen is seated, she knows her worth and power, and she will have no connection to the predators, abandoners, and abusers. They will cower before her and run away because they seek the blindness of ignorance of self. They can sense it, the vulnerable lack of self-worth and self-knowing, the lack of identity, and the longing to be dissolved into another. Like dark wolves, they can smell it from a maiden as self-ignorance. No matter what a woman's age, this embedded princess imprint is a fallacy in the feminine energy and leads her into the depths of depravity, seeking to be loved and validated as real. She longs for her divine lover to look into her eyes and see perfection, when she has not even begun the journey to reclaim her own divine sight. This fractured human self is weak, and so what believes in its own inherent weakness will succumb to what is forcefully seeking to consume it. Divine woman, believe in true love, but seek it within before you enter the jungle of the wounded masculine, to show you your own inner fantasies that live within this helpless, lovelorn maiden inside of you. The princess wants to be admired, the center of attention, and lifted into a false and escapist reality that is disconnected from actual divine love. True love does not seek to escape beyond what is in front of it, but to be deeply present with what is. So see your masculine where he is, as he is. He is your mirror and he is real. No matter his flaws, he is your greatest teacher, as he shows you your inner delusions. The places he disappoints you are his gifts, to show you where the wounded princess must be seen and reparented into her feminine queenship. For it is true that the path of sacred relationship will draw from you a greater mastery, if it is taken with the proper understanding of how easily you can be lost in the dream of romantic delusion. Do not love who he could be, dear woman. Love who he is. See him as you seek to be truly seen in intimacy of body and flesh. Not perfect, but authentic and real. Learn from each other, and if you are diligent, if you have done your own inner work to actualize your own divinity, sacred union will be born within you. Shedua naila dadakala koya nayashtaya haye. Hoino kalakano yashtalakaya hayane. Hoye alakana dotukoya nanashtaya haye. Hoino no koya haya haye. Haya nekaya koe haye. So be it, divine daughters of light. Open your eyes to move beyond illusion and delusion and fantasy and face what is before you as the mirror of the Magdalene force. Allow your counterpart to show you the places where you hide from yourself, where you deny yourself and you lie to yourself. Let him enter as that scoundrel that will root out the places in you that need to be brought to the light. If you can accept this sacred mission in your relationship, to be present with what is in a reflective way, a new bridge can be built where the masculine and the feminine again rise into their sacredness, and each brings their wounds with vulnerable heart to share, exchange, and care for. And a new dawn of the sacred masculine and feminine union has a chance to be rebirthed. Beshala datoko ona yashtala ko ona la kaistelea heka dadoko o ya hashtala kanano ko o ya shte ehishtala ko o he anadashtala ka aya. So be it, beloved ones. So it is. The fifth seal is lifted. I am the great Sophia wisdom. Hai holok oe hasha. Yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey.